This call is being recorded.
Good morning. Our apologies for being a minute late. We just had some technical challenges. We will call the meeting to order. Council is conducting this meeting in person and via conference call in accordance with the Municipal Government Act, Section 199. Council chambers is now open for public attendance in person. However, councillors and members of the public may still join meetings remotely using our current teleconference process. If you've submitted a comment request, the chair will call on you at the appropriate time. The chair may also ask for comments and concerns from the public relating to a particular topic, and at this time, phone lines will be unmuted. If you would like to speak, please state your name. We ask that only one member of the public speak at a time. All persons will be allotted 10 minutes to speak as per our procedural bylaw. We ask that if the meeting recesses, that any callers hang up and call back in as the meeting reconvenes. This helps with call quality. Please note this call is being recorded and will be uploaded to our website and or social media. To eliminate background noise, please mute your phone during the meeting. Everyone has a right to be present at council meetings and council committee meetings. Any attendees that are considered disruptive to the progression of this meeting may be removed at the discretion of the chair as per the MGA Section 198. We thank you for your cooperation and understanding. Do we have any councillors participating remotely?
I don't see any.
Okay, perfect. So we can do our normal voting procedures then. We have an agenda before us. Does anybody have any additions or changes?
Good morning, Reeve Link, Brian from Administration. I do have a couple of additions that I'd like to add for council consideration. The first one would be an in-camera item for organizational chart. The second one would be handy bus information under 2.3.1. The third one would be the Rosebud River Ridge Subdivision time extension under 2.3.2. And then the fourth and final thing that we have to add is a special ratepayer presentation at 11:45.
Any other changes or additions? A motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move it as amended.
Councillor Armstrong has moved. All in favor? Motion is carried. We had the minutes circulated from the September 21st regular council meeting. Any errors or omissions? If not, a motion.
The minutes is circulated.
Councillor Kester has moved. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Move to our public hearings. I move that the process for the Wheatland County Council meeting, as it pertains to the scheduled public hearings, will be as follows. Public hearing, first reading if required, then consideration for further readings of bylaw for those public hearings that have been closed. I further move that the above process will take place with the absence of resolutions to go into and out of council before and after each public hearing. All in favor? Motion is carried. I'll call the public hearing to order for Bylaw 2021-20. Welcome, everybody. Does any member of the public have an objection to any councillor sitting on council for the public hearing? And can administration please verify that notice of the public hearing was circulated in accordance with the MGA?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. And were there any written submissions?
No, there were not.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Council. Sherry Bars with Planning and Development here to present Bylaw 2021-20. The subject parcel is 91.6 acres in size and is located directly east of Speargrass. It has accesses from Township Road 220 and Highway 817. The development proposal is to redesignate 59.82 acres from agricultural general to direct control district, with 31.94 acres remaining agricultural general to facilitate an aging in place community. Staff circulated the application to external agencies, internal departments, and to adjacent landowners within 2 miles of the subject parcel. The Cara Development Plan was approved, the Cara Area Concept Plan was approved by Council on January 12, 2021. It is the guiding development for the proposed direct control district that will facilitate the future development of the seniors community. The direct control bylaw proposes 2 development cells designed to allow flexibility based on market demand as to where construction will begin within the cell. Cell 1 will provide for residential development in the form of independent living cottages, multi-unit residential care homes, gathering spaces, and a community center with associated amenities to serve the community. Cell 2 is primarily residential development in the form of independent living cottages and multi-unit residential development. The build-out of the Cara development envisions a population of approximately 750 people, which includes residents and employees living on site. The technical reports and studies that were submitted in support of this development indicates that it can be serviced and is suitable for the intended use. Servicing for the proposed development will be via piped municipal water and wastewater servicing connected to the Carsland Speargrass water and wastewater systems. Transportation, the roads within the Cara development will be private, with maintenance the responsibility of the Cara Foundation. Access into the proposed development is from Highway 817 via Range Road 253B, which will run parallel and to the east of Highway 817. This proposed access is dependent on Alberta Transportation's realignment design for the Highway 24 and Highway 817 intersection. An emergency access will be provided via an existing gravel approach off Township Road 220. This access is intended to be utilized for emergency access only. The subject parcel contains several man-made ponds which will be used for overall stormwater management and will be designed to serve as an amenity for the residents. This proposed development aligns with the relevant policies, guidelines, and objectives of the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan, the Vulcan-Wheatland County Intermunicipal Development Plan, the county's Regional Growth Management Strategy, and the Municipal Development Plan. In conclusion, staff is recommending that Council move second and third reading of Bylaw 2021-20, and Council has 3 options before them. They can approve the recommendation, not approve it, or approve an alternative recommendation. That concludes my presentation, and the applicant is here to speak on behalf of their application.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Good morning.
Good morning.
If you can just state your name for the record as well, Marcia.
Wait, did you say something else?
If you can just state your name for the record.
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Good morning.
And good morning and welcome.
Thank you. My name is Marcy Byma. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about Cara Seniors community. We live in difficult times. I'd invited supporters to attend council chambers, and of course that all changed with the latest public health order. Staff and council had the opportunity to read the letters of support from my first open house, and interest in the project has only increased as more people have found out about the project, and more importantly, they found out about the incredible challenges that we're facing as a society in the coming years. I want to take the time to reflect on some of those challenges to provide the context for this update on Cara Seniors community. On January 16, 2015, the Globe and Mail published an article entitled, When a stagnant health system meets an aging population, disaster awaits. The article indicates that by 2030, 1/4 of all of us will be over age 65. Close to 8 million people. The article goes on to say that keeping a chronically ill patient in a hospital bed costs $1,000 a day compared to $130 in a home or $55 with home care. It continues with the statement, the new normal for doctors, nurses, and hospital staff is this daily struggle to find places for elderly patients, who should be in a long-term facility instead of on a gurney in a hallway. This article was written long before we watched COVID-19 take its devastating toll. Due to all the supports provided to individuals and businesses throughout the pandemic, our country has racked up almost incomprehensible deficits and debts in the hundreds of billions of dollars, with only more to come. With the closure of many businesses, vacant properties, the loss of many jobs, the tax base of municipalities, provinces, and the national government is shrinking. Perhaps we'll rebound quickly, perhaps we will not. The sheer number of seniors who are aging, coupled with incredible levels of public spending, mean that we will never be able to subsidize all of those who need assistance. We will simply buckle under the weight of all of this. The injection of massive funds into the economy has resulted in high levels of inflation, food, fuel, heating costs, and the list could go on. Housing costs are increasing, material shortages, supply chain issues becoming the norm and not the exception. The carbon tax is, by all estimates, here to stay. It is becoming increasingly difficult for people to afford to live in our society, and especially so for seniors who are facing minimal returns on secure investments and who are often prevented from re-entering the workforce because of ageism or simply an inability to do so. In addition to all of this, seniors are increasingly facing issues related to isolation. Isolation has been identified as a serious health risk, and elder abuse is on the rise. While most of us may be oblivious to these issues, seniors also face transportation and mobility concerns, sometimes in critical areas of their lives. The Hip and Bone Institute is located in Gulf Canada Square, right in the middle of downtown Calgary. Many who need hip and knee replacements must attend appointments there, and without family or friends to assist, it would be very difficult to attend these appointments. Transportation for those with serious mobility issues is quite limited and very costly. I know, I hear it all the time. Many physical spaces in our society are difficult to navigate, with narrow hallways, numerous stairs, or lack of amenities such as grab bars and washrooms. Many areas do not have ramps or other accessibility features. Technology can be a wonderful benefit in our lives until it isn't. The reality is that the rate of technological advancement means that the world is a much more difficult place for many seniors to navigate. We need to learn and do many jobs which used to be done by business employees who were trained and paid to do this work. We're often required to check our own groceries, navigate difficult automated phone systems, schedule appointments online, or check ourselves in when we travel. As each day passes, we are forced to learn how to do the jobs of more and more people, as more and more of this work is downloaded on us, the consumer. For those of us who have lived in the world of technology, this may be fine, but for seniors who have not, the world is becoming an increasingly challenging place in which to live. And there are a few who would argue that we are, as a society, living in a way that is sustainable. We struggle with droughts, water restrictions at various times, escalating energy costs, and the prospect that this trend will only continue into the future. We watch as recyclables work their way through the system only to wind up in landfills at the end anyway. Sadly, we've often had very pronounced and sometimes very negative impacts on our environment. If all of these issues do not give pause to every person in this room, they should. None of these issues are going away. They are real. They should be of deep concern to every one of us, as they involve every one of us, either directly or indirectly. We're all taxpayers. We're all members of families and communities. And if we are fortunate enough to continue along this path of life, we will all be in this demographic one day. So how does a 360-unit country residential seniors community connect in any way with these broader issues? I want to spend the balance of my presentation to highlight exactly that. When I began working on the concept that has become Kara's Seniors Community, it was with the thought that it would become a model or prototype for other not-for-profit country residential developments. I believed and still believe that it is much simpler and more effective to provide care in a community than it would be to provide care in the homes of many who reside on their own throughout the countryside. It is also safer. I deliberately developed a simple concept and simple designs. There is only one cottage design, and if you drive on Highway 817 southbound and look east just before the Speargrass intersection, you will see the model cottage, which is almost complete. There's only one 10-unit care home design, one that is intended to feel more like a family setting than not. There's only one community center design. The entire concept and design is intended to be efficient and effective. In terms of personal affordability, Cara Seniors Community has 4 financial pillars. The first is that it's a not-for-profit organization. The second pillar is that residents will have the opportunity to invest whatever they are able to. They don't have to, but whatever they are able to, so that they can earn a return that would otherwise be earned by other mortgage holders. The third pillar is that employment opportunities will be available for those able to complete certain jobs within the community. We'll have a solid and engaged workforce when specific jobs can be done by residents themselves. And the final pillar will be seeking of grant funding and donations wherever possible. Because isolation is such a major issue in our society, the design of both the site and the buildings was intentional in terms of creating opportunities to build community. If someone wants to isolate on this project, they would need to intentionally choose to do so. Buildings are bungalow style with verandas, thus encouraging the interaction with neighbors. There are walking paths, ponds, gathering spaces, green spaces, and a community center, all of which encourage the building of community. To address mobility issues, the buildings have been designed as barrier-free bungalows with wider hallways and large en-suites with grab bars. For the independent living cottages, the garage and the house are on the same level. No ramp is required. That's fairly unusual. The community will have a handicapped vehicle for those with serious mobility issues, as well as a bus for day trips. Most importantly, we will deliberately try to understand the nuances of mobility issues so that we can intentionally develop a community of care. With regards to technology, staff training will be the predominant leaning rather than downloading tasks on residents. Having said that, it's recognized that many seniors are tech savvy, or they want to be, and so there will be intentional training and linking of younger people with residents. And finally, a word on sustainability. I've worked closely with my energy consultants, and I'm pleased to say that the model cottage, which is currently being completed, is net zero, meaning that the cottage will produce as much energy through solar power as it will consume when considered over the course of a year. I'm also working with my engineering consultants to determine if we can pursue water reutilization strategies for irrigation purposes, and I will be coming back for that someday. I have an excellent team, including lawyers, engineers, architects and designers, building contractors, and energy consultants. They care about the project, they care about the quality, they care about the end result, and I'm both privileged and proud to work with such an excellent team, and they really are. Cara Seniors Community does not for a moment profess to provide all of the solutions to the problems referred to earlier. It is, however, a project where solutions would be deliberately considered and pursued. The project will provide a venue for discussion and collaboration, a very real and concrete project to apply the collective skills, abilities, and talents of many to help address the issues of our times. I have greatly appreciated the support of Council for the area concept plan. All of the technical reports are complete and reviewed, and I am ready to take this final step of seeking final Council approval for land use. So thank you for your attention, and I'd be happy to address any questions.
Any questions regarding the project?
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, I'm Glenn. What I have on my computer screen doesn't match up with your community layout and the handout. There's a corner out of there.
Oh, Sorry,
It's got future development in there, and I'm just curious.
apologize. I guess we didn't proof all of them. We did proof some of them.
Okay, I was just curious if we were redesignating the whole parcel, or
No.
are we leaving that out?
No, we're only redesignating close to 60 acres. There's 30 acres remaining as ag, and that will be the ravine area, which will have, got to help me out on this, Sherry, it's environmental easement, so that nothing can be developed in the ravine, which I believe county wants, and I know I want.
Okay.
So, and the parcel that is ag will be open to the community. It will be green space, but it will not be part of the development. So it will be primarily green space with a couple of buildings, and that's it. So
Okay.
that's the plan.
Well, as long as we're redesignating as much as you need for that,
Yep.
and you don't have to come back.
Not coming back. Because the
Not
rest
that I
will all
don't
be...
like to
Yeah.
see you come back, it's just nice
Yeah.
to get it done the first time.
Yeah, I don't actually intend to develop anything on the green space other than what would fit under ag zoning.
Okay.
And that's intentional. I want to keep it as green space. I want to keep the deer happy.
Okay,
They run through there all the time.
okay, so,
Yeah.
no, just checking, as long as it
Yeah.
all fits in.
Yeah.
One other question. I'm with the lodge and Wheatland Housing. When your residents come, they will be responsible for the total payment, or are you thinking they'll be able to apply for LAP grants or anything like that? Or have you
I'm
approached
hoping
that?
not, but one thing I will say that has changed since I first came to council a few years ago is construction costs, and Tom, you'll know this better than anybody. It's pretty wild out there. And so my heart is not to, that people will be able to, through the mechanisms I talked about, they'll be able to afford it, but I will do what I have to do. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it
So-
gives you more freedom, too,
Yeah.
to do what you want.
Yeah.
right?
Well, being a private development, it is, I think it's nicer if we can remain that way, but we also live in a world that's going more crazy by the day, and so we have to recognize that.
Okay.
So it's not my intent to have any subsidies. I don't think we're going to have the money to do that in our society, and that's why I introduced this the way I did, the context, because I think we're going to be struggling as a society for a lot of years, particularly after what's happened.
Especially the building phase, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
For sure. Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
No question, just comment. Thank you for your persistence. I know this has been a long time, and I really am excited to see this, and I like that the location. I like the Speargrass being close by, and developing that area. I think it's really good.
I appreciate
for your
that. Thank you.
persistence,
Yeah, it's been a while.
Through the chair, I'd just like to say that, just as a comment, similar to Scott, that back in the early 90s, when I was on the Drumheller Health Board, the regional health boards were created back then, and we looked at one east of Hanout in special areas, and we were in favor of it back then, of something coming. It was an outfit out of the States come out and presented something similar. It was a circular idea. But I don't think they could get all their agreements and things in place with the special areas. I don't know what happened. It never did come forward. So that's 20 years ago. So it took a while to see something else come in. So if you can make it work, great.
I have a comment too, Marcy. Just to let you know, your neighbors are very excited about this happening.
Excellent.
The whole community
you.
is right behind you.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. There's a lot of people, even from Calgary, who are interested. So, yeah, I think people are seeing what's coming,
Yeah.
and I don't think it's a pretty picture.
Any other questions for the applicant?
I was just going to say, I'm looking at this, I'm going, so how do I get from my house here to the golf course without getting killed on 817?
I'll tell you, Tom, you go out the back, down underneath the bridge, and you're there.
Perfect, that sounds
There
good.
is a
Good.
pedestrian there, a pedestrian, you can even take your little golf cart there. So, yeah, no, that question was asked a few years ago when I first started this, and there's a whole little, I don't even think it's this pathway. I think it's actually you can drive there underneath the bridge.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Good.
And
It's all
there'll
doable.
be pathways all through Or you can go right to Carsland.
Yeah.
When I'm done.
Exactly.
Well, then you don't have to have a liquor store there then.
We'll work on that, Tom.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any persons who would like to speak in support of the application? Any persons with concerns or opposed to the application? Any final comments from staff?
No comments, thank you.
With that, we'll close the public hearing for Bylaw 2021-20. Council's wishes.
I'll move second reading of Bylaw 2021-20.
Deputy Reeve Kester has moved, or Deputy Reeve Clausen, sorry, has moved second reading. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried.
I'll move third reading. Bylaw
Councillor-
2021-20.
Councillor Bigger has moved third. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. It's very exciting. And yes, just on behalf of council, thank you for your diligent work on this, and thank you to all of our administrative team that worked on this as well. I know years and years of work have gone into this, and I think it's going to be really exciting for our seniors in our community. So, absolutely. So, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move to 2.12, Bylaw 2021-21.
Good morning, Council. Tracy from Corporate and Financial Services. I'm here to present the Master Schedule of Fees bylaw. On an annual basis, we review the Master Schedule of Fees prior to the budget process. With this review, most fees will remain the same, except for the fees labeled proposed fees found on page 33 of the agenda. The other thing to note is that currently this is a policy and it should be a bylaw. I did check with Municipal Affairs, and we also heard from legal counsel that yes, it should be a bylaw, particularly since fees for utilities fall within this schedule. Are there any questions about the proposed fees?
Any questions?
Yeah, the gravel purchases, is that still at county pits, not stockpiles? Or?
I have our GM of Transportation and Agriculture on the line to answer that question.
Hi, good morning, Council. Yeah, through the read, those would be from our pits and stockpiles, yeah.
We missed that.
I missed that.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, just to firm in through the read, those would be through our pits and stockpiles.
The pits and stockpiles. So we do have, there was a new procedure put into place, I believe in 2021, where there's only certain days that people can go and purchase the, pick up the gravel. And that was kind of just to help with safety and liability concerns as well, and efficiencies.
So the ratepayers should check in with the office here before they proceed.
Yes, we do have a schedule. I believe the schedule is posted on our website as well, and we do send out constant reminders when the gravel is available on those days.
Okay, thanks.
I think your schedule shows one in the spring and one in the fall.
I think there was 4 dates.
Yeah. A couple of days a week.
Spread out, yeah.
There is, what we can do is we can circulate that schedule to council.
Any other questions regarding the proposed fee changes? So we do have 5 suggested resolutions to do the readings for the bylaw as well as rescinding the policy. Council's wishes.
I'll move that council provide first reading of the master's schedule fee bylaw 2021-21.
Councillor Eichert has moved first reading. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried.
I'll move second reading of bylaw 2021-21.
Councillor Baker has moved second reading. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried.
I'll move permission for third reading of 2021-21.
Councillor Armstrong has moved permission to read third. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried unanimously.
I'll move third reading.
Councillor Kester has moved third. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to 2.13.
Oh, we got to rescind one.
Send.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
I'll move that council rescind schedule of fees policy 2.7 and that be replaced by the master schedule of fees bylaw 2021-21.
Deputy Reeve Clausen has moved to rescind. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Now we can move to 2.13.
Good morning again. The next four bylaws that I am speaking to, three borrowing bylaws and one lending bylaw, have been advertised for 2 consecutive weeks as per the MGA, starting Friday, September 17th and Friday, September 24th. Administration did not receive comments from the public on the 3 borrowing and 1 lending bylaw. Therefore, I'm asking for second and third reading of bylaw 2021-24 to set out provisions for a loan to the Hazar Seed Cleaning Co-op Limited.
Council's wishes.
I'll move, I'll move second reading.
Councillor Armstrong has moved second reading. Discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried.
I'll move third reading.
Councillor Kester has moved third. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Move to 2.15. Or sorry, 2.14. Goodness.
I am looking for second and third reading of bylaw 2021-25, being an amendment to bylaw 2012-107 that sets out provisions for a loan to the Strathmore Seed Cleaning Plant.
Council's wishes.
I'll move that council approve second reading of bylaw 2021-25.
Councillor Eichert has moved second reading. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried.
I'll move third reading for bylaw 2021-25.
Councillor Bigger has moved third reading. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to 2.15.
And again, I'm looking for second and third reading of bylaw 2021-26, ACFA borrowing bylaw for the Drumheller and District Solid Waste Management Association. And this is to borrow $205,000 from the Alberta Capital Finance Authority to provide a loan to the Drumheller and District Solid Waste Management Association for the purchase of 1 new transfer container and to refurbish 2 others with the replacement of containers in Hazar, Mishishi, and Craigmile waste transfer sites.
Council's wishes.
I'll move second reading.
Councillor Armstrong has moved second. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried.
I'll move third reading.
Deputy Reeve Clausen has moved third reading. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to 2.16.
I am looking for second and third reading of a lending bylaw, bylaw 2021-27, being the Drumheller and District Solid Waste Management Association lending bylaw, and that provides administration with the authority to lend $205,000 to the Drumheller and District Solid Waste Management Association.
Council's wishes.
Move second reading.
Councillor Armstrong's moved second. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried.
I'll move third reading.
Councillor Custer has moved third. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Move to 2.17, Bylaw 2021-17.
Good morning, Council. Stefan Kuntz presenting on behalf of administration. Bylaw 2021-17 deals with second and third reading for the Energy District amendments. Council will recall this item from September 7th, which time there was a public hearing. And Council tabled the item and requested reconsideration of the setback requirements in order to better align with the existing setback requirements in the Agriculture General District, and additional information and rationale regarding why particular setbacks were proposed. So the body of the report is essentially the same as before, just for your information. But the information requested is provided in Attachment A, so I can go through that with you. I've also provided, it's not in the report, but we have some examples comparing the proposed changes here essentially with some other municipalities. If you'd like, we could distribute that. Great. And how I think we should maybe do this, we'll just go through the solar setbacks first, the changes. If there's any questions, we can discuss those, refer to the other attachment here, and then go on to the wind ones, just so we keep things straight. So we'll just run through these. So what we're looking at Attachment A, each setback is listed, and then the current refers to obviously the bylaw right now. September 7th proposed is what was in the original, what was given first reading, and then the potential revisions, and actually I made a mistake, they're both, it says October 5th proposed and then potential revisions. That's essentially, looking at what your direction was and how we could potentially change those. And then notes, obviously, just a bit of an indication here. So with the Provincial Highways, for the solar setback facilities, that's obviously the discretion of Alberta Transportation, so we're not proposing any change to that. The setback between structures isn't exactly applicable in this situation. Essentially, that still is there in order to account for farm buildings and other things. Obviously, these uses may have those type of structures still on there, so it doesn't necessarily have to do with the solar setback facilities, so it's not particularly relevant, so we haven't proposed any changes there. With the setback distance from a road, this one, it didn't, what we were proposing on September 7th, didn't match the Ag General setback. So that was 75 meters, or 22.8, or 75 feet, sorry, or 22.86 meters. So this is what it currently is. Obviously, we propose to reduce that to 10 meters. So in order to comply with your direction, it would move that back to the existing one, which is 75 feet, or 22.86 meters. The distance from residential dwellings, not proposing any changes to that one, so it's still 175 meters. So maybe just some background on that. Some things to consider about with setbacks for these type of facilities. Again, this isn't the large towers. This is a solar facility. Something like that can be similar to what's in, say, an industrial district. If you have like a storage facility or those type of things, it could look similar to that, and those don't have those same level of setbacks, obviously. The other thing to consider when we think about buffering is that distance isn't the only way that that can be accommodated. It can be accommodated through either berms or vegetation or trees or those type of things. So that's something that we're looking at when we have this 175 meters, is still working with the applicant, working with AUC. If there is a dwelling in that vicinity, it's in maybe a gray buffer area where it's getting close to that 175 meters. Are there other things that they can do in order to accommodate that, either through a fence or berm or those type of things? So we haven't proposed any changes to that one. The last one is the distance to the property boundary. So currently it's 3.05 meters or 10 feet. And looking at the ag setbacks for the smaller type of facilities, so the WEX category 1, kind of the individual solar panels, those are 20 feet, 6.1 meters. So it seemed kind of strange that the category 2 was less than the category 1. So essentially bumping that up to 6.1 or 20 feet in order to match the smaller type of uses seems to make sense. So that would be the other proposed change there. So again, just from the property boundary, going from 3.05 meters to 6.1, and from the road right-of-way, essentially keeping it as it is, but changing the proposed from 10 meters to 22.86. So are there any questions about the solar setbacks? Or perhaps with attachment B, any of the other examples there?
I think we're good.
Okay. So I'll move on to the wind setbacks. So for this one, comparing to Ag General, obviously it's quite a unique type of use. It doesn't exactly work in a lot of situations. They are greater than the Ag General setbacks in all these cases, but I'll run through these as well. So same thing with the Provincial Highways. Again, this is the discretion of Alberta Transportation. The distance between structures, essentially for a building, 10 meters for the turbine itself, the height of the tower is what it is now. And again, we're not proposing any changes to that. So again, there's nothing really in Ag General that's going to compare to that. It's kind of a specific thing. So we're not proposing any changes there. For the distance from a road right-of-way, so again, the distance in Ag General is 75 feet or 22.86 meters. And what we're proposing is that the minimum be 38.1 meters or 125 feet. But most of these will actually fall under that section 2, which is 2 times the total height of the tower. So if we look at something like the Wheatland Wind one that we saw in August, I believe those are 110 meters. So obviously they would have to be a minimum of 220 in order to comply with that, and the 38 meters wouldn't apply there. So they are definitely greater than the Ag General. The distance from the residential dwellings, again, so in Ag District, there's no obviously setback from a residence, so the setback from the property line here is provided. And again, the minimum 150 feet in that case is definitely greater than the 75. But again, most of these would fall under that 2 times the height of the tower, which is again a specific thing. And the last one is for the property boundary. So the way it's currently worded in ours, I don't even think it's possible necessarily to get one in there, but what we're proposing is the 25 feet or 7.62 meters, and proposing to keep that the same. So this is something that's pretty consistent among a number of the other municipalities we looked at. And the thing to consider with that is it's 25 feet not from the base, it's from the arc. So if the blade is 50 meters, it would actually be 50 meters plus 7.62. Yeah, so not proposing any changes there. So are there any questions with the wind setbacks?
Just go ahead.
Got a distance between structures. First question, why?
Through the chair. So that would be for like buildings and that type of thing. So for an operations center and that type of thing, that may have to do with some sort of building code. I'm not exactly sure where that came from. It is an existing one. So again, it's for internal, if it's a shop and like an office or those type of things.
Okay, it's not meant between windmills type?
The towers is in there as well. So that refers to, under that current thing, the current height, the turbine height of the WEX tower plus the turbine arc radius. So the setback for the tower itself is the height of the tower.
Right. So between structures, the tower is the arc radius plus 10 meters.
Through the chair, no.
So they don't hit when they turn, is that the idea? Or I'm just wondering if you took into consideration the body of the thing that the turbines are on, I'm thinking is more than 10 meters. So when it turns, it's actually not a circle around it, it's
right.
Oblong. Does that make sense? I'm just, if that was the reason so they don't hit, maybe 10 meters might not be enough.
Through the chair. So it's actually referring to 2 different things. So the 10 meters doesn't apply to the tower. What it's calling a structure there or other associated structures, that would be like a substation or a maintenance facility, a building, those type of things. If it's the turbine tower itself, then the setback for can't have a building within the height of that tower. So if it's 100 meters, you can't have a structure or another tower within the height, within that distance.
Well, there can't be another tower within 100 meters. Yeah, because they're 100 meters tall, right? The new ones?
I think they vary, but yeah, if that's what the height is, then yes, you couldn't be within that. And that would include the blade, obviously.
If they include the blade, then it's more than 100, it'd be 150.
So is AUC tied to these numbers, or can they decide whatever?
Through the chair, so they essentially, yes, I mean, they have their requirements, and if they make a decision that they've considered setbacks and their setbacks are lower than ours, then yes, those would apply. Again, the reason that we're doing these,
bothered in doing this?
Because we want to be involved kind of earlier in the process with them and say it's still an engagement process. It's still, they have to work with the municipality, they have to work with the adjacent landowners. And so this is us essentially saying, Council of Wheatland County, representing our residents, want to make sure that when these type of facilities come in here, essentially staff, when we are working with them, we can say, well, what we kind of expect is these things. So when you're proposing these, yes, you can vary them in some situations, but we would like to see you follow these.
I understand that, but we just spent an inordinate amount of time 2 years ago doing this whole thing. And it was the will of council to pass the current deal. So, we have to somehow get out to the people in part that we are not. This is just an exercise. Anytime a wind power or a solar power comes into the area, that is all predetermined. That is all decided, and we have very, very little control. And I appreciate what you guys are doing and everything, but this is just, I will not use the word I want to use, but it is just an exercise in futility, because an unelected, unaccountable body is responsible for putting these things out there, and whether we like them or not, we're stuck with them. So I appreciate what you're doing here, but I don't want people to think this is all set in stone. This is all, this is at the whim of some bureaucrat that probably got elected because of the amount of money they gave to the current government. So that's my piece.
But remember, I understand where you're coming from. Remember that these are different than the oil industry. If the landowner doesn't want it there, all he has to do is say no. They cannot go to the government and have the government force the landowner to have them put on their land. The oil industry is different. If you don't want the oil industry there, they come and put it there anyways. That's a process through the government. Wind and solar, that's if you don't want it, you say no, and they have to go somewhere else. They can't take you to court. They can't take you to the government. They can't. It's done.
But it's sort of it, and I agree with that. But it is also, if my neighbor decides to put one of these monstrosities up in front of my place, it doesn't make any difference whether or not I don't want the monstrosity on my place. I am just, and so I understand what you're saying. But this thing is fraught with so much danger, so much down the road of being, and I just want it, I understand where we're going, and this has to be done, and this is quote unquote progress. I just, and I appreciate the work you're putting into it. I just, I don't know how you put up a proceed at your own risk for the ratepayers, because this is, we know where this is going to go, but it. So anyways, I've done my piece, and I won't say any more. I just want to be known that AUC has the has the veto of whatever we decide to do.
Once the landowner has agreed to have it on his place, then they follow all of AUC's recommendations. We can put conditions on it to try and alleviate some of the issue, but once the landowner's made that commitment, then the AUC, if they follow all their recommendations, yes. Yeah, I understand. And whether it's progress, I argue that to some point, but anyways.
Question to administration for communication. Could we entrench in our development processes a very clear statement that Section 619 requires us to amend our bylaws pursuant to the approval by AUC, just so it's very clear in our circulation to adjacents, but also to the applicant, and just make sure that there's some kind of procedural sort of check box to make sure that that happens? Or if you're doing it already?
Through the chair, that might be a good idea in maybe the notification, the circulation period, just as a, because again, they should be notified during the AUC process, and that would be the part where they, and again, us would look at these things and say, you know, this is what we kind of expect. But that's a good idea, maybe, again, during the circulation process to remind people of that. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Myself, I like this, and I understand, I appreciate what you're saying, Tom, but if you don't have anything, then it's easier to get bulldozed over. At least if you have something that's defendable, comparable to other municipalities. We have to make the effort as the county to represent those ideas at the AUC and back them up and try to back up our residents. That's the only thing we can do, really. And we need some kind of documentation behind it. It's not ideal. It should be, you know, I don't like having people in this council chambers that we have to listen to and we're powerless. You know, they have good reasons for what they want, but really they should go to the AUC and not to us. And it's a silly system, but it is the system we have. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we can make sure that we're amplifying that messaging too when we're aware of applications, just making sure that when people are in touch with us about concerns that we're strongly directing them towards the AUC and to that approval process, because it does override what we do. Any other questions?
No, just a comment that here, it comes back to how much control, and this is where some of what Tom was talking about at the last meeting, how much control do we as a council want over what a person does with their own land? And I know you had some concerns over the development permits, but this falls under the same thing. If the landowner wants to do certain things with his land, basically what we're doing is putting controls in place so that they can't run roughshod over with what they do, but we can't run roughshod over them either. It's their land, they've paid for it. If they want to develop it in a certain way, we're saying that's okay, but to do that, you have to follow these conditions, whether it's our conditions or the government's conditions. Either way, you have to follow. And in some cases, we can make it a little tougher on them, but the government is always the one that oversteps where our regulations. The government can always step in and say, no, you're wrong. This is what's going to happen. That's the joy of sitting at council. Is having them have the ability to say, no, you're wrong. It's not going to do that.
Any other questions? We do have a 10 o'clock appointment. If we need a lot more discussion, we may want to move to our 10 o'clock appointment and then come back to this. Or if we're prepared to do second and third reading, we could do that, or consider second and third reading.
I'll move second reading.
Any discussion? Councillor Armstrong has moved second reading. Any discussion?
Pardon me, if I may, before you do that.
Of course.
Just a reminder, so second and third reading as it is currently would be the September 7th proposed column. If you want to see the one that's under the potential revisions, that's an option as well. I've prepared some wording that should do that, if that's what you want to do. Again, moving straight to second reading, we'll do it as it currently is proposed. If you'd like to see those two changes, here's a suggested amendment.
So which changes are those? The ones
so that's in attachment A. Essentially, it's the public right-of-way for the solar facilities, changing from 10 meters to 22.86, and from the property boundary from 3.05 meters to 6.1.
I would put it in there with the changes.
So because it was given first reading, somebody needs to...
Councillor Armstrong, there's a motion up on the board to amend bylaw 2021-17 in accordance with the potential revisions listed in attachment A of our request for decision report.
Yep.
Councillor Armstrong, are you moving the amendment? Okay, any discussion? All in favor of the amendment? Motion is carried. Now we could consider second reading on the amended bylaw.
I'll move second.
Second reading. Oh, sorry.
Councillor Bigger moved second reading. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried.
I'll move third.
Councillor Kester moved third reading. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you for all of your work on that. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We're going to take a 5-minute break before our 10 o'clock appointment. My apologies. Meeting back to order.
Mute off.
Matt, are we good? Okay. Good morning. We'll call the meeting back to order. We do have a 10 a.m. appointment. Representatives from the Strathmore Rcmp Detachment. We do have a new staff sergeant who has joined as Detachment Commander, so we'd like to welcome you. And if you want to just introduce yourself for the record, please. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Staff Sergeant Mark Wilgosh. I'm the new Detachment Commander for Strathmore Detachment, so all my comments this morning will be made through the CAO to the Chair and the rest of Council. And again, I'd like to thank Wheatland County for arranging this opportunity to come before you this morning to introduce myself. I guess, in brief, Strathmore is my 7th post over a period of 20 years between 3 provinces. This is my 3rd Detachment Command. My prior post before transferring to Strathmore was in Chestermere as the Detachment Commander there. So even though I was working in Chestermere, I've been living in Strathmore for that period of time. I'm a resident of the area and I certainly frequent and enjoy the county areas. Most recently, camping out in Carslands, but kind of our favorite area to camp because our kids are teenagers and it's easy to come back home if we need to, and camping with parents is no longer cool, I guess. So, but we're close. And of course, the odd hockey tournament for extended family in the area, like Rockyford and the surrounding areas. So we've certainly been residents of the area for the past 6 years. My wife and I and our family enjoyed the area. We're planning to stay at least for the next 5. And I look forward to serving the residents, not only of Strathmore, but our surrounding areas in Wheatland County as well. In brief, as far as our priorities for this fiscal year, our priorities this year are number 1, with reductions in property crimes, that being break and enters, theft from motor vehicles, and theft of vehicles. Our second priority is road safety, to ensure that we're reducing reportable collisions and injury collisions. And third, and one priority that I take very seriously, is community engagement. I do believe that our members need to be in the communities, speaking and interacting with the people with whom that they work with and represent. And that just builds fosters a level of trust between law enforcement and our community, because without the support and help from our communities, it makes it really hard for us to do our jobs. So that's where we want to see greater interaction, greater positive interactions, especially in schools with our youth and our children, and again, supporting our residents and maximizing community safety. For me, community safety is not just the responsibility of the police, it's for everybody. We're just here to help do the things that residents aren't able to do for themselves, and certainly we're here to make sure that we're making our communities as safe as possible. That in very brief is me. If there are any questions about perhaps prior postings or of any interest with respect to any views or priorities going forward, I'm happy to receive questions.
Well, I've got a question. Where does the Langdon, the new detachment in Langdon fit in with, or is that under Strathmore's control, or how does that work? Only because I live on the west side of the county, and I'm thankful to see more police presence as officers seem to be heading west, so from Strathmore. So I'm just wondering how that system is, like how that works out.
Langdon, as it's set up right now, and it's kind of interesting you mentioned that I'm going to be on my way bringing furniture there after we're done this meeting. But Langdon is a satellite office of Strathmore Detachment at this point in time. They do have a municipal contract in place with 3 dedicated members to the community of Langdon that is entered in with the county of Rocky County. Going forward, and I think after the federal census results come in and how things progress there, we may see some more growth to a point where Langdon may become a standalone detachment. But they have dedicated resources that are working there, and of course with support from Strathmore Rural Resources.
So are the Langdon only in Langdon itself, or are they responsible for like Wrangler Park, whatever that park, the industrial park that is just off 100th Street on
Langdon members are dedicated to Langdon. However, with any municipal contract, my view is you police it like it's its own little country. You deal with your borders, you work with your residents who are essentially paying for the policing services, but external threats. So if there's a close by property or an offender that we know that's living close by the municipality, then of course they'll dedicate resources to those external threats to make sure they're not affecting the residents inside of Langdon. As it relates to Wrangler Park, I do have a business outreach program that we're planning to roll out with Wrangler Park. Rocky View County does have an enhanced position that's still working in that area, so I'll be using those resources to target Wrangler Park and the issues that we face there. And again, making sure that any of the, again, external threats, as I had spoken about, aren't affecting residents of Langdon and the rural areas surrounding.
Any other questions? Maybe just on behalf of council, I'll share the last couple of years in collaboration with the villages and the town of Strathmore, we have a Wheatland Regional Partnership meeting that we meet quarterly. And that group did establish Rcmp Priorities for sort of this region. They're very aligned with what you had stated. Officially, ours were the reduction of property crime, the application of a crime reduction strategy, police presence and visibility in the community, traffic law enforcement, and community engagement, which I think you hit all of those. One other issue that I have heard from ratepayers and I did raise as potentially adding as a priority is just around accountability. And we have raised this with the provincial RCMP as well. I understand that there isn't currently a mechanism in place to ensure that each call is followed up on, and that can vary depending on the detachment and sort of the team that's in place and the officers. One of the reasons it's so important to me is because when people don't get follow-up, it does really erode trust in our police system. And then I find when people don't get that follow-up, they decrease, the amount of things that they're reporting or they're actually making calls. So I'm not sure if there's a way within, of course we have 5 detachments that serve Wheatland County, but if there's a way for you and your detachment to focus on that. And I think our ratepayers are very reasonable. They recognize that if somebody came and stole their boat yesterday, like an urgent critical response is not necessary, but they just want to know that you've received the call, that you're following up on it. I try and share every opportunity that I get with ratepayers that even if it is, the theft happened yesterday, the odds of, finding out who did it are, limited. I know that you guys do that intelligence-based policing with your crime strategy, and even just knowing sort of where things are being targeted can contribute to that, but you need the calls reporting it, even if there's a low likelihood, of fixing or recovering the property or that type of thing. But that really does hinge on that accountability. And I don't know if other councillors are hearing that in your divisions. I think property crime overall has been down. I know our peace officers have pointed out that people are home. And so that maybe is a deterrent as part of like COVID and the restrictions that have been in place. I do worry when the COVID restrictions are all lifted and like we return hopefully soon to life as we know it. And as well when some of the maybe financial supports that were in place are removed, that we're going to see a huge escalation in rural crime again. So I feel like we're in a little bit of a lull, but we need to be really proactive and encouraging, our ratepayers to report to RCMP and then hoping that you have a mechanism to follow up on that.
I guess perhaps to answer a few of those concerns that were highlighted, first and foremost, I believe in service to our residents and service to the public. It is my expectation of our members for every investigation that 2 things happen before any investigation is closed. Number 1, that victim services has been offered to that person to provide the appropriate supports, who can also provide that follow-up to our victims of crime or complainants that report incidents to our detachment. Throughout the duration of the investigation, they can be engaged, they can be providing those updates, and they're there to support our members so they can focus on the investigation itself. But the second expectation before any file is concluded is that that member has to have spoken to the complainant first and let them know what the outcome of that call was. And that is my expectation, and if it's not happening, again, we do our own internal quality assurance process to ensure it is, but if not, I would appreciate hearing about it to ensure that it's not something that persists, because again, building that trust between the police and the public You are correct, Your Worship, in pointing out those two areas of concern, and I certainly support it. With respect to crime reduction strategy, that is actually built into our priority. One strategy is a habitual offender management program, as well as a persons of interest program. So habitual offender management relates to persons who we know are habitually involved in crime, or they pose a significant risk to our public for various reasons. They could be a chronic domestic violence abuser, they could be involved heavily in property crime, or perhaps trafficking in illegal narcotics. We select them based on various reasons, but once they're identified, our members do pay very close attention to them. The strategy being it's roughly 10% of the population that cause 90% of the problems, and that's where we find the best bang for our buck with strategic focus of our resources on those areas. Your Worship was also quite right with encouraging residents to report crime even if they think nothing can be done about it. If we had, for example, a stolen boat, but we had 3 more in the same area, that would tend to indicate someone with a particular MO or modus operandi, where we can use our intelligence services to try and track down where they're moving this material, where they're particularly active, and that can help us, dictate where we devote our resources. So that lets us know where crime is happening. If we have those reports where crime is happening, we can focus resources to that area. Another strategy that I'm looking at is, again, certainly, through the remainder of this council and into the next, is an enhanced rural crime watch type program. More details to come on that, but it's just a matter of building up our resources to find out what is the most appropriate strategy where we're focusing our attention, again, where it needs to be. So certainly we're looking to, while we lay out our priorities, and while they may not specifically, on the 3 of them appear to include all of the wishes and desires of all of our stakeholders, there are elements of those wishes and those priorities developed and intertwined into that plan to ensure we're addressing all concerns.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's really encouraging. And I think key will be those internal processes. And I know, I think it was the former Detachment Commander as well was very committed to that. And I think it makes a huge difference when from your leadership level right down to your officers, there's that expectation for accountability. And we certainly appreciate that on behalf of our ratepayers. So thank you.
Just had a question. I was thinking about what residents have talked to me about, and had some, and it has to do with breathalyzer, and I'll say this at the start, I have nothing supporting drinking and driving. I think if you get caught, you deserve what you get. But I do know at the scales, and it's just random people getting pulled over for no set reason, and it's the first thing they do, and that's all they do. And I find it odd because with this pandemic COVID that we have, it would seem it would put you guys at the highest risk doing that very test for no reason. It just seems like it's a standard procedure. I know people that have been in car accidents, and the first thing they do is do that. I know. Has it changed, or is it effective? What's going on, or can you even answer that?
I can give some examples, but what you're referring to is our mandatory alcohol screening, which was formed part of changes in legislation with impaired driving offenses. So I've been here for just over 3 months with Strathmore. I can tell you how my view is on it and how we've rolled out the past. Mandatory alcohol screening is there at any point in the day to let the public know that people could be drinking and driving at 8 o'clock in the morning or 6:30 in the morning or at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. I've investigated and have supervised many incidents of that itself. So, for example, if a school teacher is pulled over before they go to school and a mandatory alcohol screening test is administered, I know there are varying views as far as the propriety of it. But if one person goes to work and lets everyone know, like, hey, it was 6:30 in the morning, the police were actually checking. That word does tend to circulate to those who may not have the safest decision making in the morning, and perhaps that could be serving as a deterring factor. As far as where it seems to be random, there may be roving check stops, which would be, instead of having a formalized check stop, members working in the area, and that's their specific focus, is to look for impaired drivers, and by doing that, they're checking vehicles, not only to make sure that they're licensed and registered and insured, but also to ensure that the driver hasn't been drinking. As far as that practice happening around the scales, I'd like to hear more information about that, if there's a concern from a resident that I could specifically address. But as far as your mention with COVID, it did change our operating practice slightly, especially in the beginning, where we were restricting that practice only to make sure that our members were protected, certainly because there hadn't been vaccines and there was a lot of unknowns with respect to transmissibility of COVID. I can tell you moving forward that, again, as our members are vaccinated, as we learn more about COVID-19 and as we try to ensure that we're delivering service to ensure that we're still protecting residents, COVID or not, that our members are both protected, but then we're balancing that with the safety interests of our residents.
Any other questions? I'm sure there will be more in the future. We do appreciate you coming and introducing yourself to council. And we also appreciate we've been getting good quarterly updates from some of our detachments, and I think that really helps just for us to see what the trends are, what types of crime are increasing or what's decreasing, those types of things, and then just good for us to be able to communicate what we're hearing in each of our divisions in terms of priorities from ratepayers and that type of thing. So on behalf of council, thank you and welcome to the area.
One more question. What is the breakdown of rural against officers that are, Strathmore pays for its own officers, we have. So what is that breakdown, and are we fully staffed are you fully staffed at the detachment now?
Our Strathmore contingent is 16 municipal members, and our rural contingent is comprised of 10. At any point in time, we may have some vacancies, and the rural contingent, to be clear, is used between Rockview County and Wheatland County, at least within our detachment jurisdictional boundaries. As far as vacancy rates are concerned, there's always movement with members transferring in and out, and sometimes it's complicated with the sales of homes. And of course, the pandemic didn't help that very much at all. It slowed things down. We do have a few vacancies, but we do have a number of experienced members that are identified for transfer to Strathmore. In fact, I was just notified of a female member from Turner Valley that'll be transferring here to Strathmore as well, who's accepted the posting, and again, the relocation process starts. So we do have a couple of vacancies. We mitigate that as best as possible. Regardless, we always make sure that there are sufficient resources working to manage both calls for service in Strathmore as well as our surrounding areas. And we do ensure that there are adequate resources to meet the needs of our public.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, and we'll certainly stay in touch. Thank you. Motion to accept for information.
Also move.
Councillor Bigger has moved. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. Move to 2.31. CAO Henderson had circulated some information from the Handy Bus Board in response to some questions and discussion at a previous council meeting. Just open it up if there's any discussion. Councillor Armstrong had proposed a motion, and I think we had tabled it. I'm trying to remember. We'll be in the minutes. I'll check. Anyway, if there's any questions, we can start there with the information that was circulated.
Yes, just to note that council did request that the handy bus present at the October 5th council meeting, which is today, and unfortunately the representatives could not make it. But they did forward on some documents that was requested in the council resolution. So I did circulate those to council. I'm probably not in a great position to present them on behalf of the board. I don't sit on the board, but we can just, if council has any questions, perhaps they could forward those on to the board chair, or if there are no questions, we can proceed. Thanks. I do have them on a PDF here as well, if council does want to take a look at any, and they were forwarded to council on September 30th in the morning.
Yeah, and the motion that we had approved at our last board meeting, or our last council meeting, was that the Strathmore Handy Bus request for 2021 funding be brought forward to today's council meeting for council consideration. And I know Deputy Reeve Clausen had declared a pecuniary interest.
Yeah, if there's going to be discussion going on, I'll do the same and recuse myself.
That's correct, yes. And that information was provided in the documents from the Handy Bus Association.
have a question, but I cannot.
So, I'm just trying to remember where this all, so we're proposing, or that it was proposed that we give them $10,000 and in cash, and then I don't know if the services that we supply is sort of agreed upon. So, like, I'm thinking that with the services with providing them an office with internet and telephone, I believe, doing the CVIP on the vehicles and all that kind of stuff, that must be running pretty close to $15,000. And I'm looking at the clientele that we're doing here, and I would feel comfortable with just what we do in lieu of, because that is if we didn't provide them an office, they would have to go somewhere else to get an office, and that would be a substantial chunk of change. So I'm a little bit, I'm struggling with the $10,000 on top of everything else that we do. That's sort of where I think that's probably where my whole problem is. So I'm willing to be talked out of this, but I believe that the services we provide more than make up for the ridership that our residents use.
So, we do give them rent-free, right? Because in their 2021 budget, they do have office rental down as $12,000. So I was just, my question was, we are rent-free, right?
Yes, that's correct. We're in an agreement. I think it's $1 a year kind of thing. So it, yeah.
Okay, so that shouldn't really be in there.
Yeah. I think at the time, well, actually, I should not speak on behalf of the board.
Yeah, okay. I'm okay with actually giving this year. I think the board needs to get their books, so they, how to say this, like some good financing reporting and some a little bit more clear. It's a new board. They're on their own for the first year, going through a pandemic, all this stuff. I think the 10,000 for this year, but not as an every year thing, not an annual contribution. We had brought this forward a couple times now, so I'm okay for giving it for this year.
Councillor Kester.
Okay. So, Brian, and that on?
Yep.
It's on. How much does it cost the county for this office and to do the CPIP? I've heard before when we were talking about the cooperative, Wheatland Regional Cooperative, those are incidental costs, or they're very small to the county because we have the capacity. If they weren't in that office, it'd probably be empty. I don't know how much the internet costs, what they use, and I believe they have their own cell phone. I'm not sure about that. So how much does it actually cost the county? Because we do the same service for FCSS, and they are providing a service to the municipality, much like construction and all that kind of stuff. So there, I'll let you answer it now.
So from the county perspective, the CVIPs would be about $6,000 annually. So what that is time from the mechanics, which is charged at the rate that council approved. I forget the amount off the top of my head, but I know that we just went through an exercise to adjust that CVIP rate. And then as for the office rent and internet, that is, it's a sunk cost for us. So realistically, you are correct that it would cost us no extra. However, the fair market value of a rent space like that probably would be in the range of about $1,000 a month.
It really isn't costing us anything.
It costs the county minimal extra. Could cost a little bit with utilities and maybe some cleaning and stuff like that, but.
So I we'll just share, I had a ratepayer request to meet with me yesterday. We met here at the office, and she wanted to discuss handy bus and some concerns. And she also sits on the handy bus board, but she's also a ratepayer. She asked to speak as a ratepayer. One of her concerns was around operating funding, and she did just ask me to convey to council that their main concern is operating funding on a go-forward basis. I did explain that personally I'm very supportive of the handy bus, the service that it provides to vulnerable people in the county and to our seniors. But I also indicated that I need to balance that with the responsibility that we have for stewarding tax dollars that we collect. And that's why the financial information and the ridership information and that type of data is really important to me, just to make a decision that I can have some rationale to share with my ratepayers if there are concerns around it. I know through some sessions I've sat in on with FCM, the handy bus model is extremely valuable and can be an extremely efficient way to provide service, especially in more rural or remote areas in Canada for those vulnerable people. Yeah, I just wanted to share that I agree with Councillor Eichert. I think it is really valuable, the in-kind services that we provide, but I did just want to share that they do have the concern about the operating funding on a go-forward. I do see Councillor Bigger's point as well. This has been a huge time of transition for the board, taking over sort of the operations and delineating from the town of Strathmore with their operations. Yeah, those are just some personal thoughts.
So, through the chair, my questions are I know they're out here now. They were in Strathmore, and when I'm looking at this, I'm trying to figure out the justification when they say that there was, for this month, so they're talking September, I'm assuming, they had 75 clients. Or is that January, February? Okay, those are the months up there. Okay. They only had 2 rurals, out-of-town clients. Town, they had 50, 60, 75, but they only had 2 out of the rural area. 4, they had 5 in June, July, 5 in July. August, they had 7. And then down below, they have other county clients. In Rocky Ford, they have 1. It looks like it's fairly steady. They have 1, goes fairly steady every month, but nothing coming out of the other areas. So my question goes back to why they're out here and not in Strathmore, where their service is. That's where the bulk of their service is. Why are they out here in the first place?
I think we're just providing office space for their administration staff. I believe their operations are still based out of Strathmore at this point.
I know, but my question is, why would the majority of their operation is in Strathmore? There's very little out in the rural. And I guess my question is, do we as a municipality, do we see it as a service, as a useful service for our clients? And if we do, then if their budget is their budget, that's what it is. That's like Donna says, if it's 10 grand, it's 10 grand. We need to decide whether or not it's a service that we value for our client, for our residents. If we do, then the dollar value to support it is what it is.
The only thing, yeah, and one thing I worry about is, okay, they have for 2020, this is what I mean about the books, 2020, the expenses for a manager were $273,000. I mean, that could be staff in there somewhere, but when you get to 2021 budget, there isn't anything allowable for that expense for staff, for drivers, I guess. I don't know. I think I worry about their reporting, their statements.
So I think with questions like that, it would be key that we would have representatives from the board here to discuss them.
On there. And I think the $10,000 would allow someone, a councillor, to sit on that board.
We did add this to the agenda just well, because we had said we would with the previous motion, and also because we did have the information. But because the representatives from the board weren't available today, just floating this as an idea, I mean, we don't have to make the decision today. We could ask for representatives from the board when they could attend council, just so that we have an opportunity to ask those questions. And I want people to have complete information when they're making a decision around this. So that is an option. I don't know if they indicated when they shared the documents if they'd be available for a future council meeting. I know this one didn't work.
I don't think I inquired. I definitely could. I could send an email right after this presentation and find out.
It's an option.
So we're going to table it again, though? Is that what you're thinking?
Well, I'm only saying that's an idea. We don't have to. We can make a decision. Yeah. Councillor Kester, you had a comment?
Somewhat agree with Ben. The service is centered or focused on Strathmore. There's no doubt about that. But if you remember, maybe you don't remember, I think it was prior to this council, we had a county-wide survey, recreation type thing. And the number one service that our residents were lacking was transportation. It was by and far the largest request. And I look at this service much like I look at fire. We don't fund fire because we got 15 fires over there and only 2 over there. We hope we never have any fires. And as far as the handy bus is concerned, I imagine most people out there are hoping they never have to use the handy bus. But when you have to use it, you have no other option. And I've talked to people that use the handy bus and it seems expensive, but to them at that particular time, it's cheap because it's the only thing they have. So we need something in the county to be there. And when I look at Rocky Ford, for years, you never see a handy bus out there. So that tells me there's somebody in that village that's in need. That need he might recover, whatever it is. He might move, I don't know. But next year it might be Galician. It's been Galician a number of times. Could be Azar, could be anywhere in the county. No different than a fire. It's there. We need something to do. So looks like 40, maybe 40, 50 rides a year in the county, counting the village. I don't think we can afford to buy our own transportation bus and run around for that. So I would be in favor of getting a bus. We'd probably use it a lot more than the handy bus. But for now, when we have nothing else, we need the handy bus. We have people out there that need it. No different than fire. So I'm in favor of the 10,000. I would give it to them. Next year, when they're doing their budget, when they're going through this and they rationalize the service levels, they can look at it differently. But this year is almost over. They need operating money. I think we should support them and move forward.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Glenn. And would you say Rocky Ford? We don't know if that person is in the village of Rocky Ford or 2 miles outside of Rocky Ford. They're going to Rocky Ford to get the bus.
Yeah.
So we don't know where they're from. They could be from the village or the county. It doesn't matter. But I agree with you, and I agree with Donna. I'll put the motion on the floor that we support their request for this year and then review it throughout the year, and council have during their planning session, one of their planning sessions throughout the year, a serious discussion as to whether or not it's a needed service. And if it is, then you fund it accordingly.
Can I do a friendly amendment? That we have a representative, or maybe they are already going to be on the organizational meeting, where a handy bus would be appointed someone? That would be automatic? Okay, never mind.
You've got representatives on there.
I just wanted to make sure going forward, because that representative wasn't always informed of when the meetings were. Like they've stopped informing that person. But going forward, we need a representative on it.
You need a strong representative. Yeah, somebody that, if they're on that committee, that's their job to make sure they're.
I just wanted to make sure it was still there.
Yeah.
I think that can be addressed in organization.
Yeah.
There's a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 2.32, Rosebud River Ridge Subdivision Time Extension.
Good morning, Council. Sherry Bars here to present a third time extension request for subdivision application 2016-17 located in the hamlet of Rosebud. The subdivision was given conditional approval on May 8th, 2018 with 33 conditions. The applicant has made significant progress in completing these conditions of approval with only a few outstanding items. The major condition outstanding is the signing of the development agreement along with the securities. The applicant is requesting a third time extension. However, we're unable to obtain the other landowner's consent in time for this council meeting. They're in discussions with the other party regarding their continued participation in this development. So the applicant is requesting that council approve a third time extension request contingent upon their obtaining the other landowner's consent by October 7th, which is the expiration date for this subdivision approval. A motion has been prepared for council's consideration, and that concludes my presentation.
Good question. The other landowner doesn't, if we grant the extension to 2022, but the other landowner doesn't consent by October 7th, then what happens?
The application expires, and I have spoken to the other party, which is why we weren't prepared to come, because they weren't willing to sign at that time. They've met again as of late. The latest was on Friday, and the developers contacted me yesterday. They are hoping they can get them to consent, and so they asked for it to be contingent that if they can get the consent by Thursday, the end of the day, then, which is why the wording is that this approval for the third time extension is only based if they can get the other landowner's consent. We've also been in discussions with the applicant to prepare an alternative subdivision application for them to proceed without the other lands involved.
It's the 7th is when? Today?
Thursday.
Thursday.
They were aware. We've been working with them since early August because this was the same issue last year with the other party. They had an agreement only till March 31st, but they didn't quite consent, so we're not certain that they will participate at this point.
For me, I don't think the 2 days is appropriate. I would move it, but my gut feeling, cross off contingent on receiving the consent form by October 7th. If it takes the other party 2 weeks, why are we putting a timeline on them?
Because it's under the Municipal Government Act for this conditional approval. It expires, and then part of the approval is that for it to proceed, because there's two properties involved, both landowners have to sign. Our concern is that getting them to sign the endorsement papers as well.
I understand that. So when's the latest the endorsement can be signed?
Oh, they will have 1 year. Should we get the consent to extend the time extension of the conditionally approved, they would have 1 year to finally endorse, yes. But they've offered the other party 4 options to proceed, and one of the options was just to outright buy the property. But it wouldn't solve, because they would have to go through subdivision, which was proposed at one time, to separate the portion that they want to buy and then proceed without the other party.
Yeah, I've talked to both.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm having trouble with the 7th. I wasn't aware of it.
It's tied to the extension that was granted last year.
Yeah, for sure.
We've been working for 2 months for this.
I know. It's been 12 years or more. Yeah, it's been more than. And I think some of the problem is how long it's taken the county for agreements, and they expire, and then things change, right? But I'm tired. I don't know about the 2 days. Who asked for the 2 days?
The actual applicant. I have spoken to the other landowner, and her last conversation, which was conveyed to the NIBS, was that she is no longer participating. She has not sent me any kind of communication other than she's no longer involved in this project, which is why we didn't prepare a council report.
Okay.
If I understand correctly, the 7th is the latest.
So if she doesn't sign by the 7th, then we can assume she's not in. Then what happens?
The subdivision
Everything's
expires.
done.
And it expires,
And
and
they
they
have to start all over.
Yes, the positive for them coming forward with a new subdivision application, a few things have changed in Rosebud, so the conditions would be less, plus it took them up till just this August and September, actually. We just finally completed all of the required studies that weren't done with the original application submission. It was part of the conditions and not the approval.
Okay. I can, because all the studies are done, most of them will be relevant for the new.
That's correct, because they are as recent as this summer.
Okay. I'll move that. The council approve the subdivision time extension request for conditionally approved subdivision SD 2016-17 for a period of 12 months. Extending the expiry of the conditionally approved subdivision to October 7th, 2022, contingent upon receiving the required consent forms by October 7th, 2021.
Councillor Kester has moved. Any discussion?
Formality, that's the end of business day, October 7th, or 12 o'clock at night?
That's correct.
Okay.
And both parties are aware of this date and time?
The applicant is aware because they've requested it. We haven't spoken since they sent in the request this morning for the contingency of this to the 7th, and I will inform them after this.
Oh, boy.
Unfortunately, the parties it's their legal counsel speaking to each other.
I have a hard time doing this when the other party isn't aware of it.
It's really, if I understand correctly, the best that we can do, though, given that the subdivision is expiring on October 7th, so.
That's correct.
I can make that other date longer, though, than the 7th.
Don't think we can because the subdivision would be expired.
I know that. I just dislike passing motions when the other party isn't aware of it. Especially something like this. I know what's going on.
Yeah.
So our responsibility would be with the applicant.
That's correct.
Right? Like
And
that's our sole responsibility, if I understand correctly.
Yes, and part of the issues we've run into with the development agreement, because it involves all landowners, we've gone through our legal counsel to update the development agreement to remove their responsibility because they didn't want to be responsible for the development, the securities, and et cetera. So it's run into issues the entire time. And I am preparing as an alternative other options they can do for a separate subdivision application.
Actually, if they don't sign by the 7th, it's done.
That's correct.
So we don't even need the 7th thing in there.
Well, we do because we can't approve a the extension without that.
Yeah, but you can't approve the extension without all parties signing.
But we're passing a motion to approve the extension, and we have to include the clause with the contingency because we don't have that at the time that we're approving the extension. So this is a way to comply with the MGA, but give them essentially grace for 2 more days to try and get that signature. It's the best that we can do.
I know that. I know all that. But saying it's contingent in the motion when it's required, even if it's not in the motion.
Without that clause, we can't approve the subdivision as a council right now. We need that for our legislative, like our due diligence must include that clause, or I can't consider approving the extension without that.
Well, you could change the wording to contingent upon receiving the required consent as dictated by municipal government or whatever.
I would be happier with that.
Because I'm sure, just as a comment, that if, as you said, they're both represented by legal, they know what's going on.
Exactly.
Yeah, so.
That wording works. You can incorporate October 22nd, contingent upon receiving the required consent forms as prescribed by the Municipal Government Act.
By October 7th. Or whatever.
And it takes councils away from a perceived pressure on one of the parties is what I'm getting at. That works. Thanks for that. I'll move it as MGA.
So you're accepting an amendment. Because we had a motion on the floor.
Amendment for sure.
Okay. So there's a motion on the floor with the amendment as presented. Any questions or discussion?
Just a question, staff. You mentioned legal fees, or legal, like how much have we spent on this and who's paying for it? Because this has gone on for years. And there's been a bar set by the county for whatever reason. And we have these goals to complete. And I'm thinking about some ones in my area that we've done the same thing to. And you just, you lay out the groundwork for them to get the steps ahead, and if they don't do it, I have a hard time supporting it after time after time after time. So that's where I'm. And the costs, like that, I just don't understand.
Just for a short term, because I can't go back further, I could look back, but I know from 1 year ago when we prepared the short form development agreement, we did it with we envisioned it to be a template. So it wasn't just written for Rosebud River Ridge Estates, but also that we could use going forward for other subdivisions. And then with the amendment to take the other landowners off, we've spent to date approximately $8,000 for that document.
So my next question is, who pays for that? Is the county paying for that, or is?
That's correct. The county, this was not under peer review. However, it is something that can be considered because some of the language we could change in the development agreement, because some of the clauses in older development agreements included a statement that all legal cost for preparing the development agreement was at the developer's cost.
That's where it should land, yes.
And is there a fee for applying for an extension?
Yes, there was. It was $750. They haven't submitted it. They were holding on in the event that this was not accepted. But I would prefer that they submitted it with all their consent forms. So they would submit that.
We have fees for everything we do in here, and based on not cost recovery. One time we had a motion we would pay for half of them, and there was debate that we would pay for all of them. This particular development, I don't know how many development officers have worked on this file. A lot. And when they started, it wasn't, there was no capacity in Rosebud for any more development. We actually put a moratorium on development because of water and sewage. Both them problems are now remediated. We have ample capacity in both. So yeah, now it's a lot easier for them to move forward. So yeah, we have lots of applications that never pay. And I don't see that as a problem. It's the price we pay to try and get development in the county.
Any other questions or comments? There's a motion on the floor. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. We'll move to 3.1. Reeves report. Just briefly, a couple of highlights. It was a pleasure to attend I couldn't golf in the golf tournament, but I did attend the dinner. It was really good to see some of our team there. We had a really good functional wildfire exercise with Siksika Nation and some other regional municipal partners. There will be an after-action report. It was a really good exercise to just practice interagency communication, establish roles, responsibilities, and coordination in a controlled, non-threatening environment. And we did identify some action items from there in terms of our partnerships and increasing our interoperability between our departments and our municipalities. So it was well worth the time that we spent there. There's some interesting information under the Cmrb Economic Development Workshop. I did share some of the metrics that the consultant shared in that workshop just around the comparative performance of the Calgary region economy to other oil-based economies, mostly in North America, but some globally. You can have a look at those. I also attended a WFCSS meeting just as alternate, and I just wanted to highlight some of the outcome survey results. I did include some comments as well that were gathered through that survey, through the survey process, and some feedback. One of the key things that stood out to me is that the services that we provide there, and a handicap, or the handy bus contributes to this as well in supporting residents in maintaining living at home for longer. And you can see there that there's a stage 4 cancer patient that's a resident of Wheatland County that was very grateful. And several of the comments spoke to keeping either these individuals or couples or families in their rural home, which is what they desire. I'll move my report as presented and happy to answer any questions. All in favor? Motion is carried. Now, I also included the Community Futures Wild Rose Loan Portfolio Report. And the key thing I wanted to show, there's a couple of just comments with it, I guess. Well, there aren't a significant number of loans in Wheatland County. Like, we definitely have less loans than, say, Chestermere or Strathmore. I am aware that some of the loans that we do for businesses in Strathmore are Wheatland County residents, so they may live in the county but operate businesses in other communities. And as well, you'll see that the ag sector, agriculture, forestry, fishing, and hunting, in terms of invested dollars by sector, is our strongest sector with 9 of the loans that we've written year to date. Also just included some metrics there around performance. So WD, which is our federal funder, does set targets for us, and as well we set internal targets. So our goal was to fund 12 loans with a $600,000 loan value, and in the first quarter we actually wrote 29 loans with $1 million in value. So that's just to show the impact that Community Futures is having in supporting businesses in the region. And I will move the addendum be accepted as information. Also happy to answer any questions about that. All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to Deputy Reeves' report.
Thank you. Mine was handed out as I submitted it late, but it's on your desk here somewhere. Did a CMRB governance on September 2nd, and one of the good things was red tape reduction. We got rid of the recommended to the board to abolish the advocacy committee, and I believe the board followed through with that. WRC, we had 3 meetings this month. We had a board meeting, management staff review, and a special meeting for a rural connection, where we had to change some of our policy to allow for it, and it mostly because of cannot get the proper equipment in the timeline that we needed. It's on back order. And attended a HOA meeting in Muirfield, which I usually do. They're talking about, road repairs, future recreation ideas, and I know they're working with staff for in the future we'll come up with some ideas and plans for what they would like to see as a group and representing their area. And if there's no questions, I'll move my report as presented.
Any questions? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to Division 1 Councillor. Oh, I don't think there is a Division 1 Councillor report. We will move to 3.4 Division 3 Councillor report.
Thank you. Wheatland Chamber of Commerce is planning a forum for, first they were planning a forum for Town of Strathmore. It will be virtual. And then now they've gone to a forum for the county. So there's information coming out on that. I don't have the dates down, sorry. The Canadian Badlands special meeting. It was approved that the Canadian Badlands Limited be dissolved. Been answering a lot of media on that. I've attached the minutes so you can read them. We'll be in the process of sending back municipal funding for funding from the municipalities that contributed. Asparagus Playground ribbon cutting was open house. It was the 18th of September. Quite a big turnout, and we had a barbecue after. I do have I was sent from WFCSS an Alberta Farm Mental Health Network. They're looking for some funding, and I will actually bring that to the Egg Board. So you'll see that there. And just move my report as presented.
Any questions? All in favor? Motion is carried. And perhaps just a motion to accept the Canadian Badlands minutes, the addendum to your report.
Okay. Move the Canadian Badlands minutes attached to my report.
Any questions? All in favor? Motion is carried.
I just have a comment on the Canadian Badlands that, I've said this so many times and through all the media, but the Canadian Badlands is not dead. The Canadian Badlands will live longer. I believe through this, through these actions, they will be treated as the same as the Canadian Rockies, not owned or operated by a certain identity. They will be on their own, but advertised and promoted through Travel Alberta and through other tourist agencies within them. Thank you.
Excellent point. We'll move to 3.5, Division 4 Councillor report.
Yeah, my report is on the server in front of you. I think everything has been covered by the other councillors' reports, so I'll move my report as presented. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Any questions? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to 3.6, Division 6 Councillor report.
On the 7th, there was a council meeting I attended, and the Wheatland Regional Partnership was in Azar that evening, and it was distanced and round tables. That was okay. That was good. On the 9th, we had a Wheatland Housing Management Body meeting. On the 14th, MPC. And we had our Pademza meeting on the 20th. And the 21st was a council meeting. And on the 29th, we had a Harvest for Hospice was that day. And it was across the road from Agrium, that produces fertilizer down in Carsland. They had a quarter section there, irrigated, fully funded, and I don't know if there were 6 or 7 combines there, about 3 or 4 trucks. I got it all hauled in. So yeah, it was a good day for them. Price of canola was very favorable that day, as it is today. So yeah, so they're inching closer and closer to their building fund. I'm thinking they had to build today, they could probably raise the remaining money fairly quickly. So that part of the new build for the lodge and the hospice is looking good. We're still waiting for answers from provincial government. We have the minister down at the lodge in August? No, July. I'm hoping for a repeat visit, but that hasn't materialized yet. So yes, we're still working on it. And I move my report as information. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
I just have a comment on the, with the hospice, it did bring in 42. I found that out. It brought in 42 bushels per acre. And then it's an ongoing collaboration. So it'll be going on next year and year after. And they sold acres. The Carside Lions Club sold. You could also buy an acre, and they've sold that too, and that'll be added into the contribution.
Yeah, you can still buy
Okay.
the acres for $300 an acre. Agrium funded the land, the irrigation. Pioneer funded the chemical. I shouldn't be listing all this because I'm going to forget somebody. They've funded the seed. Other people funded the harrowing. I know the 4-H club in Cheadle, poisoned gophers there for a few days and really got good control of them. So that was their community thing. And different people funded different spraying outfits, funded the spraying and the chemical. Yeah, it's truly a community initiative, right? I'm sorry if I missed somebody.
No, it's an incredible fundraiser that they do. It's excellent. Any questions for Councillor Kester? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to 3.7, Division 7 Councillor Report.
Thank you. It's on the server in front of you. Just a couple of comments with Drumheller Solid Waste. Thank you for the motions this morning, but they're still having problems down there. The biggest issue down there right now is staffing, and Tammy's having a hard time keeping the staff. It's nothing that she's doing or anything else. It's just the times we're in, and nobody wants to go to work anymore. They're all sitting at home, but she is getting a few requests coming in, so she's going through that, and hopefully in the next month she'll have her staff back in place. Sewa, I was hoping to have some information on that, but the board moved the date back from September 28th or 29th, whatever it was, up to October 4th, so that was the last date yesterday for all the requests to come in for the RFPs. So we moved our board meeting date because of elections. We moved our board meeting date up to this Friday. So Friday the board will get the answers, and when I get the answers on Friday, I'll relay that to the rest of council so that you're aware of what's going on with that. And other than that, we were hoping to have it by now, but the engineers are very pleased at how many requests went out. There was over 30 requests went out for documentation, so we're waiting to see what comes back in. So they were pretty pleased with what they had seen anyway, so hopefully what comes back is good. We don't think we'll end up with more than 3 or 4 real serious ones, but that's 3 or 4 we didn't have yesterday, so hopefully that works. And on another note, I'd like to say thank you to all you guys for council and allowing me to serve with you for the last 4 years, and past council and past staff and for the last 29 years. And thank the staff for all of their diligence and their caring and their pride of work, and not just the present staff, but the staff in the past. And this county was in pretty good shape when I come on, and it's in pretty good shape now, and it wasn't simply because of the councillors. Most of it's because of the staff. So Thank you guys for everything you do. Thank you guys. You've made the last 4 years a lot more fun than the previous 6 or 7. I'll tell you that. That was a wild run, but it's been enjoyable. I've enjoyed the experience, and it's been an honor and a privilege to represent the ratepayers of Division 7. And I'm sure the next one coming on, whoever it will be, out of the lucky one out of the 3, will do just as good a job or probably even better. So good luck with you guys, with where you guys are going, and good luck in your campaigns, the ones that have to campaign. So, thank you.
I'd like to thank you, Ben, too, for the last 18 years and a half. Your guidance when I first come on was greatly appreciated, and your consistent wisdom throughout the years is, yes, and your approach and your style of representing your ratepayers. I'm thinking they'll be talking about that for a long time to come yet. So thanks, Ben.
Yeah, some of them in the positive, some of them in the negative, but yeah, thanks,
you can't please them all the time. As long as you can please some of them some of the time, you're doing good.
Thank you.
I'm going to wait to get all emotional till the end of this meeting because it is our last meeting together. But yeah, we're incredibly grateful for you and your service.
That's right.
I'll say thanks, Ben. It's been really enjoyed working with you, and just getting to know your family and it's just been really great, and appreciate your bluntness and your honesty sometimes, and your willingness to take a stand. That is very much a hard thing to do in this day and age, and I really think that's important to see and to listen to all viewpoints. And unfortunately, right now, that's not being heard. That's all I'm going to say. Thanks again.
I won't wait then, I'll just say it now. I would echo what the other councillors have said for sure. When I got on, even before I got on council, I think I called you, and when I first got on council, you were a mentor, and when I had questions, you always had answers, or you would point me in the right direction to find answers. Yeah, your steadfast service. I think Scott said it this morning, I don't know that we'll see many people in the future that serve for 30 years or close to 30 years, and that's impressive. And I think this county is better because of the service that you did, and Councillor Custer's long service as well. We're all, relatively new compared to both of you, and your wisdom and your insight has been appreciated by this council. And I guess just in general, I want to thank all of you as well. I agree with you, Scott. The diversity of opinion around this council table is critical. And I think it's at local government that we really see that work most effectively, because we all have a voice here. We all can express opinions. And I think we do represent well the diverse opinions in Wheatland County. And we can take those opinions and try and balance them and balance the competing considerations. And my hope is that what I hope to do was to do that well. And I hope that we did that over the last 4 years. And it's been an honor serving alongside each of you. So thank you.
I guess I might as well, I want to thank you, Ben, you have saved my butt a couple of times. And you've given me great advice. I wish I would have acted on more of it, but that comes with experience. So thank you very much. It was a pleasure working with you.
How many times have you heard, is that the hill you want to die on?
Good advice. Ben, you moved your report. All in favor? Motion is carried. We will move to...
Can I just, and it really sucks we couldn't go and enjoy what we had planned
yes.
over this.
We're not done yet.
The day will come. Yeah. The day will come.
Yeah, for sure.
We will move to 4.1, Chief Administrative Officer Monthly Report.
Yes, good morning, Council. So on page 105 of the agenda package is my monthly report. There is just everything I've kind of been up to in the last month. Also, the council resolution tracker is starting on page 107. Anything in green has been deemed completed. Anything in yellow still remains outstanding. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank council as well for the last 4 years. It's been excellent to work with you guys, and that's on behalf of me and all of administration. We've definitely enjoyed our time together.
Oh, your microphone wasn't on. Any questions regarding the CAO report?
I'll move the CAO report and resolution tracker as presented.
All in favor? Motion is carried. And just further to CAO Henderson's comments, I was going to do this at the end of the meeting, but we might as well just get it out now while we're all emotional so Donna's tissue doesn't get too far. Just on behalf of council, a huge thank you to CAO Henderson. Your administrative leadership over the time that you have served as CAO and before that as General Manager of Finance has brought our county a long ways. And I don't think there's really words to express how appreciative we are for how you carry out council's direction, how you align with our strategic priorities, and for the quality of information and guidance that you provide to council as well. And then also, and I know that they're not our employees, but to your senior leadership team for the information, the objective information, the quality of the information that comes to us, the insight, the level of proactivity that we see with the senior leadership team, and then extending right down through our entire staff team at Wheatland. I cannot think of an organization that I could be more proud to work with. And I think we have just an incredibly strong team. And by team, I mean every single person that works for Wheatland County. Every single position is valuable and makes this county what it is. And we've seen a lot of changes, and we've been through some very challenging times over our council's term, things that I don't think we could have anticipated. Our team has been nimble. They've pivoted when they've needed to. They have found creative ways to continue engagement with our public and to communicate well decisions of council. And I honestly could go on and on. We are incredibly grateful for everybody. And yeah, I don't want to burst into tears. But thank you to CAO Henderson, to our senior leadership team, and to every Team Wheatland member who makes this county what it is. Thank you. And we'll move to 4.12.
Yes, Council. So on page 112 is a follow-up RFD to the presentation that Council heard at the last Council meeting, and that was from the Drumheller Area Health Foundation. So Councillor Armstrong had requested that this one be put into the package, that was kind of to supplement that presentation. So there is a request for a donation of the amount of $4,000 to be provided to the organization. The information is in the report. Council can also refer to the previous presentation that was provided and that was accepted as information as Council Motion 2021-09-65. If there are any questions, please let me know, or if Councillor Armstrong, you have any supplemental comments.
Yeah, when I had talked to Brian about this, I based, you probably wonder where the 4,000 come from, but I based it on the fact that there's about 400 residents in that Dallam Rosebud area that are on the Drumheller, they call it, that's the funding side for ambulance and the Health Foundation, the hospital. Plus, there's quite a few in the Hazard area, and I imagine the Rosebud area that also use it. So I based it on $10 a head. That's where that came from to that. And I would just an amendment to the resolution in there so that it shows up, as it just says, based on information provided in the request, so that when the public sees that they understand that it's for equipment used in the operating room. If it just for a foundation based on the information provided in the request for a decision for operational equipment used in the operating room, so the public understands where it's coming from. So I'll put that on the floor. And I'll answer any questions. I'll just add to that over the years, Drumheller has not, that I can remember, at least in my term here, has not requested anything from Wheatland County. This is the first time, and some of that was due to discussions I had with Gary Crabson over the last couple of years. And I think if we're going to do our due diligence, we need to represent that area as much as we do this area when we're talking about health and health services and support of their hospitals and that kind of stuff. And we do that with their they call it the Valley Bus, similar to the Handy Bus for transportation of residents. And it's working very well down there. So this is just an extension of that. And I think we need to show some support for those residents in that area. And we do value what the hospital does supply down there. So that's where it's coming from anyways.
There's a motion on the floor. Any questions or discussion?
Thanks, Ben, for bringing this forward, and thanks for the explanation where the 4,000 came from. It makes it easier to make a decision, so I'd be happy to support it.
Any other questions or discussion? I do struggle just a little bit with it just because of just trying to delineating out responsibilities and that type of thing. But I do know that at times we do support sort of things over and above that are of a tremendous service to our ratepayers. And in terms of some of the things that happen at Drumheller Hospital, they certainly would not happen without, some of that exceptional support. Just further to about the area that is served, I do know that, I don't know if I can say that I know of patients from every division, but it's certainly even patients from the west side of the county as well do access Drumheller Hospital for different services, particularly, like you said, for surgeries and things like that. And it is a different experience when you're there than when you're at a city hospital. So I will support the motion. Just because of sort of the extent of the service that they provide and some of the rural considerations to that. And it, as well, some of these sort of healthcare or social services things that we consider, they do contribute to the sustainability of our municipality as well, because when we can contribute to sustainability of something like local healthcare or hospital in the area, that can contribute to investment attraction even, or things like that when they're looking at sort of what services are available in the area. So just some thoughts, and I'm just kind of mentally processing, because I do struggle with it as well, just so for transparency, I guess I'm sharing that. And it's not at all in the sense that I don't support the work being done there. I should qualify that, because I fully support the work and fully appreciate the work. It's just more the municipal funding for it that is the struggle. So just my thoughts. Any other questions or discussion?
I'm with you, Amber. I struggle with this kind of stuff, but I also, I guess, come to the realization that what this money is going for is for desperately needed equipment, which should be provided by the Alberta government, which spends $22 billion a year. And we have to have hospitals that are fundraising. I mean, it's a sad state of affairs, and I will be voting for this, even though in my heart of hearts I am being a bit of a hypocrite. But I believe that sometimes what the money's going for is more important than where the money's coming from, if that makes any sense.
I just want to comment to you, Tom. The money going this way directly affects it, whereas if it went through the government, that $4,000 would probably be $40 by the time it got to them through the administration and all that stuff, which is sad. So.
Yeah, and I agree. I agree with what you said, Tom. But sometimes I think the government has to get out of some of this stuff, get the hell out of it, and let us deal with it. We've done it in the past with our ambulances and with our fire departments. It wasn't because of the government that we have them in place. They've come in and taken over after we've got them in place, and usually it doesn't run as good as it did when it was operated by the local authority. So, yeah, I agree with you, but that's the world we're living in.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried.
Thank you.
We'll move to 4.21.
Good morning, Council. Tracy from Corporate and Financial Services team. I'm here to provide some highlights for the September report to Council. I noticed the forum was mentioned earlier. It is actually this Thursday afternoon. I spoke to Heather from the Chamber of Commerce, and they are going to use the council chambers just for the purposes of recording, and then we'll provide them with a recording of the session, to which then they can post it on their website. We have to be at arm's length, but we did offer to help provide a location. So I believe their plan is we have 4 divisions. They'll divide it into 2. So that will be 6 candidates. And then there's pre-planned, prepared questions to ask the candidates. So one of the highlights from assessment is the senior assessor is preparing for our DIP inspections within the county as per our contract with Alberta Municipal Affairs. And we can confirm that since this report was completed, that has been renewed for 1.25 years. As well, under taxes, the 2021 property tax auction will be advertised in the October 15th edition of the Alberta Gazette. The tax auction is scheduled for December 9th. At this moment, we have 8 properties up for auction. However, that could change. Under information services, we continue to install infrastructure at the Carsland Fire Hall, the county grader sites, and the county water plants. As well as we're working on automation for safety code processes, phase 2, toolbox safety meetings, tips, access and road work, and employee performance review. Under records management, our digital program for 2022 planning is underway. As well, we have a 3-year plan for digital indexing and digitalization of records. Under GIS, we're working on updating the county's rural address and road database to provide more accurate results. And we're also updating the county's utility data, with Muirfield utility data being the highest priority at this time. Under asset management, we've provided a budget for asset management tasks for 2022. We've added subclass asset hierarchy field to allow for more detailed summary data and also consistency. And we're reviewing the existing county tangible capital asset policy to support the creation of a universal naming convention. And the RFP for the broadband project has closed, and administration is very pleased with the number of responses. The next update to council will be November 16th on this project. And I'd also like to just tell you what a pleasure it's been to work with you for the last year and almost a half. It hasn't been that long, but it's been great. And are there any questions to my report?
If no questions, a motion to accept as information.
I'll move to accept as information.
Any discussion?
Polling stations, how are we getting that out to the public? Just on the internet or radio, or is it?
So we have it on Facebook. We're putting them Facebook ads out quite often. We have advance, and all our advance polls are in this room, actually.
I've seen that one, yeah.
Yeah, so it's on our website and Facebook. And those are our two means. And also we've included in the Strathmore paper as well.
The Strathmore paper, did you put it in the Drumheller paper?
No, we have not.
Because there's a lot of them out in my area, they get their mail out of the Drumheller area. They don't get it out of
Okay.
they don't.
Yep, excellent.
We'll get that one in there.
Yeah, you bet. We will do that. Thank you for that.
I have a question kind of about the election as well, because on the campaign trail I get a few questions. So people are asking me more about the Senate selection and the other referendum questions. Is the provincial government doing any kind of advertising for that, or because they're kind of like people are asking us, and I'm just forwarding them what we have, but they seem to have really dropped the ball in regards to that.
I was hoping that after the federal election that there would be a lot of advertising from the province about the Senate and referendum, and I'm not really seeing it. I'm seeing a little bit through City of Calgary, which is great. But I haven't been informed if the province has a plan.
Myself, if anybody inquires, I send them a link to the county website because it's the best information out there that I've seen, and provides everything they need to know to vote and what's on there. So I thank you for putting all that on there, because it doesn't seem like many others are.
You bet. Yeah, and when you are talking to residents, if we are missing some communications, such as polling stations, I'd appreciate it if you gave me a heads up, and we'll be sure to focus on that.
Yeah, I would reiterate Councillor Armstrong's comment. The Drumheller paper is important, and I think we do just have to really watch our communications that we're not relying too much on digital or electronic, just because we do have a lot of ratepayers that still do read the paper or look for, they're not necessarily relying on technology for or they may not even have access to the technology to get that information. So I'm glad to hear it's in the paper, and if it hits drum, that will be good too, that a fair number of people access that. So
for sure, we'll do that.
Any other questions or discussion? Did we have a motion to accept his information? I believe we did, yes. All in favor? Motion is carried. We will move to 4.3, Community and Development Services Report.
Good morning, Council. Matt from Administration, here to present the September 2021 Community Development Services Report found on page 120 of your agenda package. Just to go through some highlights within community services. As Councillor Bigger mentioned, the Speargrass Community Association grand opening, staff attended this as well, working on our capital and operating budget development, and as you can see, the next quarter plans are listed. Within economic development, a couple highlights to note. Our next level project in terms of signage, gateway signage for phase 1. We have developed an RFP for the sign vendor. Our lead committee has been fully engaged in this process, so we're very excited to move forward on the phase 1. We're even more excited about the tax incentive bylaw that we developed in conjunction with finance. We have developed that, and we are moving forward with that and developing a process internally. So that's very exciting work moving forward. We're continuing to engage with the Strathmore Wheatland Chamber of Commerce. Our economic development officer is a representative, so we're continuing to engage, and we're ramping that up moving forward as well. For the fire and emergency services found on page 121, we have done extensive work in terms of engagement with our fire capital committees. You can see the various dates in August that we've worked with our volunteers and staff. We're ongoing in terms of a recruitment for 2021. and you can see our call volumes there. I want to direct your attention to the Carsland Fire Hall, some milestone dates that we have. I'd like to just make a friendly amendment. Our substantial completion and occupancy at the time of draft of this report, we had thought it would be mid-September. It's going to be towards the end of October. Council will be fully engaged in that, and we'll begin to kind of make some announcements as we get closer to that date. Also, just want to thank fire staff. This October, the first week, is Fire Prevention and Safety Week, so we're really blasting out social media and getting the message out there with respect to smoke and CO detectors. Anyone, we are able to offer free smoke and CO detectors, and thanks to the generous donations from TC Energy, NMAX, Ember, Stella Jones, Nutrien, and ADCO, we were able to kind of ramp up the fundraising and really celebrate that week. So our fire team is out and about and really promoting that as well. So we're very excited about that. You'll find on page 125 and 126 some photographs, the updates of the Carsland Fire Hall, some significant progress. We are on budget. Obviously, we're a little bit delayed in terms of our timeline, but nonetheless, we're very excited with this project. You'll see some planning and development actuals year to date. We are continuing to see an increase in development permit applications, so that is very promising, as well as building permits. So those are quite a difference in terms of the 2021 total numbers year to date, which is quite exciting as well. So very, very thankful to the planning staff for getting those permits out in the most timely and expeditious manner. And additionally, protective services stats. One thing to note, our CRPOs are really noting a lot of speeding around the road, so we're definitely on that. We have had a few violation tickets this past month and year to date, so that is my update. And just one final note as well, very thankful for council working with council this term, doing more with less. We've done a lot and very supportive, and yeah, just like to thank you on behalf of the Community and Development Services Department.
Excellent. Any questions? I have one question just around the tax incentive bylaw that was passed. Should we be drafting some kind of communication and marketing plan around that, or is that already happening?
So to council, great question. We are developing, as part of the incentive attraction plan, we're developing materials. We are refining basically our folders, our communications, and we're including that within it. We have released some communication with respect to the tax incentive bylaw once that was passed. We did not do a formal press release, but we certainly can. But nonetheless, it has been communicated. It has been, that word has been out. It's been put out.
I wouldn't mind actually seeing a press release, just because then that's such an easy thing to share and amplify, and like even share with MLAs or some of the provincial like investment attraction agencies, just things like that. Even try and like just whatever networks we have to developers and to current business as well.
We'll certainly continue to develop that. We'll get some messaging.
Has it been sent to the government? That government, I can't remember the name.
Invest Alberta.
Yeah, Invest Alberta, yeah.
I am not aware, but I
That'd
can look into that.
Perhaps a motion. Would you mind if we did a motion just to like do a formal release? And
so we can certainly work on that internally, and we'll, okay. Yeah.
You don't need
we don't need a motion.
Okay. Council's good with that? They just do it. Awesome. Any other questions?
Yeah, as long as when they figure out what they're doing, they share it with us so we know what's going on.
Perfect.
I'll move the report.
Councillor Bigger has moved. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Our 11:45 appointment is here. If you want to just come to the microphone and state your name for the record.
What? Can I pull the mask down?
Yes, you may.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I have one of them.
For the record, my name is Chris Armstrong. I'm actually right here. I live up in Trochu. Good morning, or even council. Thanks for allowing me this indulgence today. It's probably the oldest take your kid to work day I've ever seen, so. Just wanted to congratulate Dad on 29 years of public service to the county and residents of Area 7. First elected in 92. I was 19 in college then, so some things have changed. Pretty sure none of us thought it would be a 3-decade term. There's actually residents in your area that have only ever had you as their elected representative. So it's going to be a change for them, for the area, and council. You spent 29 years serving your residents and the county with honesty, integrity, and a moral code that would shame most of our provincial and federal politicians. Pretty sure you're looking forward to your phone being a lot quieter. I don't remember a time over the past years where the phone didn't ring when I was visiting. There was always a pen and a pad of paper near all the phones in the house so Dad could take notes and deal with his residents. And you always took the time to talk to your constituents and listen to them, or committee member, and you had patience and advice on how they could deal with whatever issue they had. Even this past weekend, Dad was up visiting my place. He had a call from a constituent asking if he'd come to a meeting and help resolve an issue, even though he had only days left on council. So I think that shows the level of trust and respect that your area has for you. It's not the end of your service to the community. There'll still be apples to peel for the Czar Hall apple fundraiser, roasts to cook and cut up for get-togethers, plus whatever project you decide to embark on. I wanted to say thank you for inspiring me to serve on my town council. Thank you for all your effort and time that you've given to your community. And whoever wins this election, they're going to have some pretty big shoes to fill. But I know that you can walk away with your head held high, knowing that it's been a job well done. Again, Grieving Council, thank you for letting me do this.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I wasn't expecting that, and I wasn't expecting that sitting over there either. So.
I'd just like to thank council and your spouses for some wonderful times that we've had outside of council. Very much enjoyed.
And we've enjoyed our time with you as well. And we know that behind every councillor is a support system and spouses and family. And we couldn't do what we do without our family's support. So I'm really grateful that you could be here and to speak to just the work that has been done by previous councils and by the decades of service that have contributed to making our county what it is. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris. And thank Terry for standing beside me for 52 years, I guess.
She never stood beside you. She was always running ahead of you. We all know the truth. You tried to keep up. We all did.
Yeah, that's true. So, thank you, anyways. And I do respect Chris for jumping on council that chose you, and he's a volunteer firefighter and a paramedic and first responder, and he's busy with that plus his day job, which is in the oil industry, which I don't know how long that's going to last the way things are going now. But anyways, I do respect him for what he's doing there. Clay did the same thing. He was in the fire department too for quite a few years, so I'm glad they both take part in their communities. That's
what makes rural Alberta is all those contributions to community, and we wouldn't have the communities that we have without the service. So absolutely grateful for that. I think we should actually maybe take a break for lunch if everyone's okay with that. We'll reconvene. Is 12:30 good? Is 12:30 good? We'll take a break. We'll reconvene at 12:30.